what is the exact relationship between Mr. Modi and Mr. Bhagwat? Why I'm asking this? Earlier, RSS never felt concerned, even though there were differences between, say, when BJP was in power, with Mr. Vajpayee, with Mr. Advani.
Oh no, they were very concerned. Sudarshan, then the Star Sanchalak, had major problems with Prime Minister Advani and expressed them. He was much more blunt. The difference is not that the RSS necessarily agrees with the government more, it's that Mohan Bhagwat is much more the diplomat.
Right. So we are obsessed with making political forecasts.
Yeah.
So everyone asks once. So I always say that if you understand the exact relationship between the two individuals, Mr. Modi and Mr. Bhagwat, then you will be able to decode the political direction and possible strategy and communication about the next election. Is it a relationship of two equals? Who has the primacy?
It varies depending on circumstances. Each, I think, respects the other. In fact, these two gentlemen get along. They're the same age, born the same year, 1950. They've had interaction in the past in their mutual careers of going up. Mohan Bhagwat understands that policy is basically the decisions of the Prime Minister and the party, whereas the Prime Minister realizes that the RSS is important in training a cadre of workers in the kind of training process, and also mediating when disputes happen, including disputes that the BJP have. Let me give you one very important example of that. Land and labor issues were very important to this government because they think that reforms of land and labor legislation in this country will enhance growth. But it hasn't happened at the national level. Why not? And I can tell you now, I know this is a fact, it's not because there's opposition from much of the opposition parties, which there is, but that's not the real reason. The real reason is there's opposition within the Sangh Parivar to this. The Bharatiya Mazdoor Sangh is against it, as is the farmer affiliate. And in fact, they've had meetings, which they regularly have among them, to come to some consensus, and they haven't. So what did they do? The government made use of a constitutional provision that says, on certain areas, which land and labor are two areas, if the central government desires, they can pass the responsibility to the states. And they've done that. And a few states, in fact, have passed legislation in that respect. But the difference, the reason they haven't done it at the central level is within the Sangh Parivar, there is major disagreement. And so this image of the RSS as a monolith is wrong. It is not a monolith.
Okay. So, Mr. Modi came because of a serious hope and the hope of change.
Yes.
And that required, because you have studied India in a very deep manner, that we should have gone for serious governance changes, structural changes, institutional changes. Once there was a debate on land acquisition, he just stopped doing those serious things.
For reasons I just mentioned to you, they couldn't. It's not that he doesn't want it. It's because within the Sangh Parivar, there's a major difference of opinion.
So in that case, if you say that Mr. Bhagwat and Mr. Modi has a good bonding, then Mr. Modi has a case to go and tell Mr. Bhagwat, look, my hands were restricted by your persuasions. Now there is an election and you have to help me. And you help me, in fact, more intensely than 2014.
One is they will not do that because they don't see the need to do it. They believe that the BJP can on its own run a campaign. Their Swayam Seviks will help in campaigning, but not to the extent because they don't think it's needed before. And when you ask the RSS to help us when it's needed, that's not a kind of question I would imagine that the Prime Minister would ever engage in. That's agreed to. They have a sense of where their functions lie.
Sir, look at the recent developments. Earlier, I also thought that Mr. Modi has his own agenda, own timelines. But suddenly, in last few months, as we are moving towards election, the issue of Teen Talaq, withdrawing support from PDP government, the agenda related to Kashmir, which is very dear to RSS, making some more constitutional changes, the core agenda of RSS. So somewhere I get a sense that now RSS is actually on the driving seat and this government is doing certain things which were essentially not part of his own priorities.
No, I don't see it that way. In part because Mohan Bhagwat doesn't want to be in the driving seat. As I mentioned to you, just a few days ago, I saw a very senior RSS person who ended the conversation with saying, make sure that you say loud and clear, we are not in politics, we don't want to be, we are not a political party. And that's all true. In fact, throughout the RSS, there is an undercurrent that politics is corrupting. You know, when the Bharatiya Jana Sangh was formed, Golwalkar actually wanted to stay out of politics entirely,
Yeah.
because he saw it as as something that would corrupt its membership. And there's still a sense of that it is a corrupting occupation. But given the history of the RSS, which has been banned 3 times, and one of the fears is that the government may use its powers to restrict its activities.